I am excited and I am honored to introduce to you Dr. Laura Sicola. Laura is a leadership, communication, and influence expert, speaker, author of Speaking to Influence, Mastering Your Leadership Voice, and host of the podcast, Speaking to Influence, Communication Secrets of the C-Suite. Her mission is to help executives be confident, inspiring leaders, whether on stage, on camera, or just on the phone, to get the results they want to make a positive, lasting impact. Laura is one of our founding presenters of the Women in Business Conference and continues to excite and energize our participants year after year. Each year, Laura's standing room only sessions offer practical advice you can implement immediately. Today, Laura will share 5 secrets to confident public speaking. She will inspire you, she will ignite your confidence, and guide you through navigating our virtual world and presenting the best to you. I'm honored again and excited to introduce to you Dr. Laura Sicola. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you so much, Pam. I'm so excited to be back here. As you mentioned, I've been part of the Women's Conference every year since its inception, and it gets bigger and better and more powerful and more inspiring for me every year. So I'm so glad to be able to bring part of that energy to all of you as well. This year, we're talking about one of my favorite topics, secrets to confident public speaking. Obviously, I do this all the time, whether it's on stage or on video, and now everybody is talking on stage, in their own houses, through the video camera, day to day, almost hour to hour. If you're like me, by the end of the day, sometimes you're tired of looking at your own face. But nonetheless, we want to make sure that you feel confident inside and that you're able to project that confidence and that authority to everyone else out there in order to get the results that you want. And that's really what we're going to talk about today, how to be confident and how to project that authority. Now, this is a little bit complicated sometimes because we know that the number one fear out there is public speaking, even above death in some statistics. And I think as Jerry Seinfeld once observed, very apropos, is that if the fear of public speaking is actually greater than the fear of death, then that means at any given funeral, more people would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy. That's not a great place to be. So what we're going to do today is put aside all of those fears and show you some simple strategies that you can use immediately that are going to allow you to feel better and project better to get that buy-in and the results that you're looking for, to have more influence. So one of the things that I think we need to clarify first is that there are 2 kinds of issues involved. Number one are the mental blocks, right? The head trash that we all have, all the internal stuff where we freak ourselves out. And we're going to look at some of those and how to undo them. And then, of course, there's a lot of external controllable factors, things that, whether it's a button to push, quite literally a button to push, or other things that you can do that just help you come across more effectively. And again, each of the things that we're going to talk about today is easy, is fast, and is something that in your very next meeting, your very next Zoom, your very next call, whatever it is, it's going to make a difference in how you come across. So first, I want to redefine the concept of public speaking, right? Because we just saw an image a moment ago of where the woman standing in front of the whole audience. And when we think about public speaking, that is usually what people tend to think about, being on stage or maybe on video, but in front of a huge audience, something very formal. But that's not really what public speaking is. Public speaking, by my definition, is simply anytime you're talking to someone other than yourself. Now, sometimes talking to yourself may be the best conversation you have all day, but nevertheless, if you're having a one-on-one with somebody, that's public speaking. If you are meeting with your team and trying to persuade them about an idea, that's public speaking. If you're interviewing on either side of the interview, that's public speaking. So be mindful that you need to set your brand. You need to set people's expectation, your image, your reputation, anytime you open your mouth to somebody else. And that's what we're going to look at today, right? So whether you are on Zoom, just on a phone call, meeting with your team, or even networking, your public speaking. So you actually do it a whole lot more than you think, and you're better at it than you realize. So give yourself some more credit than you probably have even been doing to date. So let's look now at the first of the 5 secrets to confident public speaking in any of these contexts and more. Number 1, let your equipment do the work, right? Why should you make yourself go crazy trying to figure out how to do things differently when your technology can make you look and sound and feel better, right? Because when you look or you sound good, it's an automatic confidence boost, isn't it? Tell me the truth, ladies. When you have a good hair day, everything just starts better, right? When you have that dress, you have the blazer that you're wearing that is the perfect one that you know just fits perfectly and emphasizes, de-emphasizes, whatever it is, exactly what you want it to. You walk into that room, you turn on that camera, you just feel better about yourself. You feel more confident and you know it comes across. So we're going to do a digital good hair day on a couple of things here because you want to be able to make that great first impression before you even start. And there's 3 ways that you're going to be able to do that, 3 pieces of technology that you need to really be mindful of that'll help you do this instantly. Your camera, your lights, and your microphone, your sound. So let's look at each one of these individually. First, your camera. Camera angles are all about power. Now I want you to play with me here for a second. Look at my screen. Okay, you're looking at me, you got my setup here. I want you to write down for yourself, either in the chat or in the, there's no chat on this one, but in particular, think to yourself very specifically, if I ran the rest of this program like this, what would you think? How does your instinct, how does your impression of me change? Go ahead, be judgy. Take all the political correctness out, decondition yourself for the next 10 seconds, and just jot down mentally or on paper, what would you think of me if I ran this program like this? Typically, what I see, and I've done this kind of training with thousands of people over the last 6 months in particular, most people in chats and in discussions will type in words like amateur, small, powerless, not impressive, and they get less friendly from there. So notice that the height of the camera makes a big difference. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to make sure, because most people draw that imaginary line across the middle of their screen, and then the person takes up the lower half and the rest is all ceiling or sky. So here's what you're going to do. Hold up one hand, do this, make the little itty bitty sign with your fingers, put it on top of your head. And now you're going to adjust the screen so that wherever you're sitting comfortably, nope, not yet, your index finger touches the top of your screen. Now you take up room, right? You don't want to have, and by the way, this doesn't count. This is not my first rodeo. So that is not extending. You want to make sure that you lean in as necessary, adjust your screen, sit back to where you're comfortable, nope, and then make your adjustments so that you, like the 6 o'clock news, you're taking up the full screen. Everything that I teach is about mastering the 3 C's of vocal executive presence, the ability to command the room, connect with the audience, and close the deal. And that first C, command the room, has now just been edited ever so slightly to command the screen. You have to take up the screen in order to do so. Now, similarly, distance of your camera is going to change that, right? Because if you're too close, and you can do that, but you sort of end up being this giant face, and it can be a little overwhelming, a little intimidating. So I find that the goal of what helps you to connect with people, that second C, right, connect with the audience, is making people forget that you're on video, making the exchange, the experience of talking to you, the same as it would be if you were live, if you were there with them in person across the room. So usually you'd be across the table, right? You'd have your arms folded at the table. So from that mid-torso level and upward, I think gives you the most natural viewpoint. So you don't want to be too far away, in a little blip in the background, but you don't want to be too close so you're this gigantic face in the middle of the camera either. So from mid-torso on up, it allows you a little bit more body language and more of a full person. So you, again, seem more confident, more natural, more authoritative. And then the third one is camera height. So being able to, when possible, you want your video camera to be parallel with the top of your forehead. That gives you the head-on view that you otherwise would normally have. Most people, when you think about it, you're using your laptop, at which point the screen is tipped back, it's aiming up at you. You kind of get the nostril view for people, or you end up having to sort of look down into your camera and you get all the extra stuff coming down here. So we want to make sure that for those of us who are of a certain age, the nice straight on or downward shot is what we like to refer to as the over 40 angle. But one way or another, regardless of what your age bracket or your generation is, having that straight on shot when the top of your forehead is parallel with your computer gives you the best, most confident look. You don't want to have the head shot, the nostril shot where you look like a giant pyramid because your camera's way down here and it's all kind of, frankly, ladies, it ends up being a giant boob shot more often than not. So we want to pop up your camera, prop it up on one of those Amazon boxes that you have lying all over the house nowadays, some big books or binders, whatever you have, so that you can get that camera to forehead height. If you need to have a peripheral keyboard so that you can type at a natural level in order to do so, so be it. It's a lot cheaper to get the peripheral keyboard if you prop up your laptop than to get a peripheral camera, which can be much more expensive and frankly, not always available given today's climate. So just a little hack to think about there. Okay, so that's our camera. Now, from there, let's talk about lights. Lights matter. Now, I would love to tell you that I just walked in the room and flicked on the lights, and now we're recording this, but that's not the case. Yes, this is my studio, which frankly is the extra room in my house that I converted into a studio, but I'm gonna let you in on a secret. I'm gonna turn off the extra lights that I've had to buy and set up around here to make it look like I just walked in and turned on the light. I'm gonna hide my video for 1 second, just so that I can turn off these pieces, and then we're gonna let you peek behind the curtain. I don't normally do this for people. Okay, so you're looking at this. 2 seconds here. Oops, where is it? There we go. One more over here. All right, there we go. Voila. This is what happens when I just turn on the light in my room. It's overhead. It's a little bit behind me. Can you see me? Yeah. This is how most people show up to meetings. Not very powerful, is it? You're literally in the shadows. What does that say about your role, about your confidence, about your presence? Nothing. So I thought, okay, I'll get a little desk lamp. That's better. Sorta. Okay, so then I bought what's referred to as a ring light, and I'll show you some pictures of that afterward. But a ring light, very simply, is literally an LED light in the shape of a circle, and that's right above my computer there. And it's got a dimmer switch, so you can make it brighter and softer. So I'm going to stop the video a second. So again, here's a note. When you have to reach for something above your screen, turn off your camera or block it somehow. Otherwise, it's the armpit shot or something other equally unpleasant. Let's put it that way. Okay, so here's with the ring light. So it's brighter, but it's still kind of stark. And my white wall looks oddly grayish purple. That's not part of my brand. So what I ended up doing was buying 2 what's called softbox lights, which are those photographer lights that are kind of like a sideways umbrella with the foil on the inside. And they're not aiming at me. They're just aiming for my wall behind me. And when I turn these on, here we go. Now, I just need to adjust that because, again, you have to play with the lights. Just a hint. Now, that made this need to go brighter. Voila. Now it just looks like I walked into my room and turned on the light, doesn't it? Now, do you need to go through all these steps? Not necessarily. But for me, because this is what I do on a daily basis many, many times over, it is a worthwhile investment. And none of the pieces that I'm sharing with you, cost more than, $50 to $100, depending on which pieces we're talking about. It is an investment, but it's an investment in your brand. It's an investment in your career. It's an investment in your reputation and your authority. So, we don't want to be ridiculously expensive about it, but you don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish either. Lights make a difference. And if nothing else, please light your face. When you look at this guy, I can't tell you how many people I see who do this with their camera, where they have a giant window behind them, lots of light streaming through, and they are then so backlit that they look like they're in the witness protection program. You can't see their faces at all. So if nothing else, and again, I actually have right behind my light here, I have an open window, but there's no direct sunlight coming through, so it does me no good whatsoever. But figure out what you need to do. Do you need to rearrange your furniture? Do you need to turn around so that your light, that big, beautiful window that you have, is facing you? Okay. But even if you have to get a TV tray table or something and put your computer on top of that so that the lighting is in the right place, do what you have to do. If you cannot be seen, and not just vaguely, but so that you've got enough light to adjust for your skin tone so that we see all of your expressions and you are fully present to your audience, this is what's going to help you come through most authoritatively, most effectively. All right. And then now that we've talked about lights and we've talked about cameras, part of the action is the sound. Now, microphone use is also really important. How many of you have heard of something called Zoom fatigue? I think we all have for the most part. And most people think it is just about getting sick of being on Zoom, which of course is part of it. But honestly, it is a literal physical thing. Fatigue caused by lots of virtual meetings and things is in great part caused because of bad sound. Most people just use their internal embedded microphone, whatever comes with their device, right? I mean, that's what it's for. But I want you to notice something. If I shift gears, and I'm going to do it right now, and I'm going to shift over to using the built-in computer. And I have a pretty high-end computer. You know, it's a big desktop Mac, iMac. It's about 2 years old, so all things considered, pretty new tech-wise. But listen to the difference. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Can you hear the difference now? Do you hear the difference in my sound? I haven't changed my speaking. I haven't moved my body. I haven't changed my volume. I'm talking to you exactly as I did before. How do I sound to you? Like I'm in a tin can, right? Or a cave, kind of far away, a little muddier. Now, if I had just logged in like this, you probably wouldn't have even noticed, because it's frankly like everybody else sounds, which is about 2 steps above mediocre. So if that's become the status, the standard that we expect, well, when you sound like this, after a while, your ears get tired. You get tired of listening. You're straining to kind of peer through the mud, the auditory mud, and be heard correctly. And when you're starting to hear others who sound like this, then you're thinking subconsciously to yourself, well, if I'm having a hard time hearing them, they're probably having a hard time hearing me. So I'll talk louder and I'll force and I'll push from my throat. So of course, by the end of the day, you're physically tired from pushing harder because they sound bad. And at the same time, your brain is tired because you've had to concentrate harder for an extended period of time to hear what they're saying. Now, once again, I want you to be mindful. I'm going to shift back to my good mic, and you don't have to go to one this high end, but we do want to do a little bit of an upgrade. And I want you to be mindful of the physiological reaction your body has when I shift back to the other mic. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Now, can you hear the difference in this? Didn't your ears just suddenly go, ah, like that's so much better. You almost feel your ears exhale. Your body relaxes because I just made it so much easier for you to follow. And this has a very important impact on how people think about you, especially if you sound like this and everybody else sounds like the other one. And you certainly don't want to be in the opposite role where you sound like the other one and the people you're talking to sound like this, right? Then you put yourself at a great disadvantage. So you really do have to upgrade your mic to an extent. And you know what? You can experiment as necessary. I recommend working with a partner, a friend, a coworker, whoever it is, get them on the other end of a Zoom or video or whatever, FaceTime call, whatever platform you're using. And whether you use just the earbuds that you happen to have laying around, maybe that come with your phone, come with your device. You could use AirPods. You can get one of those nice little headsets with a little boom mic on it. You don't have to have one of those gigundo gamer headsets that look like a digital version of Princess Leia from Star Wars, right? It doesn't have to be screaming pink or whatever else, but just a little piece having what's called a boom mic right there by your mouth. Make sure that it's always in the right place. That's useful. Or you can upgrade to something a little bit higher end, but really you don't need to spend more than $100. And frankly, you don't have to spend, like that headset he's wearing is probably about 40 to 50. So just plug in, like I just did with you, showing you different sounds, if I toggle to this mic versus that mic, what's the difference? Use any mic you have with your friends and say, what sounds good, what sounds better, what sounds worse, so that at least you are aware of how you're coming across to others. All right, so once you do that, you play with your mic, you play with your sound, your camera, and you play with your lighting. As soon as you turn on that camera, you're set. You're already about to sound and look 100 times better than basically everybody else on that call. So that should give you a big confidence boost. Now it's time to talk. So let's look at the next 4 big secrets to confident public speaking. Number 2 is what I like to refer to as the 60 to 60 rule. And what that means is that the impression that you make in the first 60 seconds of your speech, your presentation, your comment, whatever it is, are going to set the audience's expectations for the value that you're going to bring to the next 60 minutes. So think about the opening statement or two that you make as being the on-ramp to your presentation. And that's hard because most people, what I hear from clients is that, well, I'm okay in public speaking in general, but the anticipation leading up to it and the first minute or two of presenting is when I'm mostly a mess. That's when I get nervous, and that's when I'm stumbling, and that's when I'm kind of tripping over myself. But then eventually I get into my groove and then I'm fine. Well, remember, 60 to 60, that first 60 seconds is what sets the audience's expectation. So if you are telling me that in those first 1 to 2 minutes is when you're kind of a hot mess, babbling, not sure what you want to say, even if it's something as simple as introducing yourself or introducing somebody else or welcoming people, running through the agenda of the day, simple, rote, housekeeping stuff. If it's awkward and clumsy before you get into your groove, so to speak, that's the impression that you're making. That sets their expectations. So if nothing else, one of the complaints I often hear is, well, I don't have time to rehearse everything. To rehearse, it's too much. It's a whole hour presentation or whatever it is. If nothing else, remember the 60 to 60 rule and rehearse the first minute. 2 times, 3 times, 10 times, whatever you need, so that you feel like you know exactly what you want to say and it'll just come out without even having to think about it. When that first minute, when you walk in there knowing exactly what you want to say, that makes it easier. That takes the burden, the pressure off of you so that that on-ramp is nice and smooth as opposed to being full of auditory potholes effectively. So get that first minute straight. You can do that, right? You always have time to rehearse a minute or two. Record yourself, listen, clean it up, script a line or two. If you need to, do not script your whole presentation, please. But if you have to script that first sentence or two just to really nail it, that's fine. Then everything else is smooth sailing from there. All right. Now, number 2, if it is true that the number 1 fear is the fear of public speaking, well, actually, let me back that up. They say that the number 1 fear is public speaking. I'm going to disagree. The number 1 fear is not about the act of speaking in public. The number 1 fear is actually the fear of public judgment. We're afraid of what people are thinking about us. We're afraid of the scrutiny. We're afraid of the contradiction of having somebody put us on the spot. And that's when our brain goes into this mental death spiral of what if questions, right? What if I forget what I'm going to say? What if I forget the order? What if I can't answer a question that they ask? What if I do something wrong? What if my tech doesn't work? What if? And we go into, as soon as our brain starts going down that spiral, we're already doomed because we've psyched ourselves out before we even start. But that brings me to secret number 3, and that is the 4-word secret to confident public speaking. You ready for it? I want you to take out a Sharpie, take out a lipstick. I don't care what you use, but you're going to write this on your hand, write it on a Post-it note, put it on your bathroom, write it backwards on your forehead so you see it every time you look in the mirror, whatever is necessary. Here we go. The 4-word secret to confident public speaking is, it's not about you. It's not. It's not about you. So all those what if questions, get them out of the way. Think about this. I'm public speaking now in something more of the traditional sense, right? I'm giving a conference presentation. virtually as opposed to on stage, but nevertheless, when you decided to watch this presentation, what were you thinking? Whether it's when you chose it a couple of weeks ago, or if it was just a matter of the 30 seconds before you clicked the button to start. If you were to go back and think about what was going through your mind, were you thinking, all right, so this Laura Sicola is supposed to be some hotshot. She's supposed to be an influence coach. She does all the training and TED Talks and blah, blah, blah. Let's see if she's really as good as she claims she is. All right, where's my red pen? I want my red pen here. I'm going to ding her for every time she says, I'm going to ding her for every time I disagree with something she says. I'm going to see how many holes I can shoot in her argument. Is that how you came into this? No, of course not. That's not how most people do. Okay, yes, there's always the possibility of that one person, and you know who they are, who needs to hear themselves talk and lives to try to look smarter than whoever the presenter is. We're not worried about him or her. But this is not how you came in today, right? What were you really thinking about? When you started this program today, your intention, I would be willing to stake money on the bet that you were thinking to yourself something along the lines of, boy, I hope this is good. I really need this. Thank goodness somebody's going to share this information with me because I hate public speaking and I want to get better at it. I hope it's interesting. I hope she's entertaining and not just useful. I hope I get something out of this. I hope this is a good use of my time because there are 47,000 other things I need to be doing right now at the same time. Any of these ringing a bell? My bet is that most of them probably are, right? So your audience, whenever they're coming in, and regardless of what the context is, meetings, interviews, presentations, whatever, people have the same interest. They are worried about what they're going to get out of it. So I want you to not think so much about what they might be thinking about you and understand that you have one job and one job alone, and that is to give the audience what they need. So you're going to stop worrying about what they're thinking about you because they're not. They're thinking about themselves. And that brings us to secret number 4, which is that you always want to answer the magic question. So your content is going to focus, being mindful of rule number 3, on the simple question, what's in it for me, WIIFM, right? Or WIFM if you want to make it a universal radio station of sorts. It's about the perspective. When you think about how to take all that information that you want to share and get that yes, right? Remember the 3 C's: command the room or the screen, connect with the audience, and close the deal. Closing the deal means getting to yes, not necessarily signing on the dotted line or exchanging money. It's about moving the needle, agreeing on next steps, right? Coming to that agreement together. So when you can help people answer this question, they are much more likely to move forward with you. So for you, my thinking was, okay, you're what's in it for me. I'm going to tell you, you're going to learn how to feel more confident, look better, prepare yourself more effectively so that when you're public speaking in any context, you're going to get results. You're going to have more influence, greater impact. So if I can give you that, that would be worth watching, right? And then you're not looking at me going, well, is she this? Is she that? You're not thinking about me, you're thinking about you. So I want to make sure that I answer those questions for you, for my audience. It is ultimately about perspective. The audience is all audiences, and this is not just you here in this moment, every audience is focused on themselves. They want to know why they should care. They want to know why it's relevant to them. So no matter what your presentation is, tweak, angle, etc., so that your audience is always able to answer that question. The why should I care about this? How is it relevant to me? Give them that perspective, have that respect for them to think about it in the first place. And then all those WIFM questions, all of those what if questions disappear. And a big part of how you can answer this particular question about what exactly is in it for me that I should care about, the way that you're going to get them to understand it and have it really sink in best is secret number 5. And that's what I call using tweetable and repeatable sound bites. Tweetable and repeatable. I use this expression a lot when I'm writing, posting, whether it's about presentations, whether it's about political debates and those kinds of things. And I'm apolitical in all of my analyses. It's all about using those kinds of debates and conferences, conventions, et cetera, as a live case study in communication, regardless of whether or not we espouse what the people are talking about. The idea is that were they effective? Do I remember? Do I understand what they're saying? Whether or not I like it is a whole other issue, but what can we learn from them and apply in our own world to be more effective? And the tweetable and repeatable sound bites are one of them, because when you can get something, distill a phrase down to a nice, tight phrase, a short handful, just a simple sentence, as opposed to making people try to figure out what you're talking about all over the place, it becomes easy to understand, easy to remember, and easy to repeat. Now, all of these 3 things are crucial: easy to understand, to remember, and to repeat. It's critical that we are able to get to the point in distilling all of our own information down to whatever those mini essential points are, whether we are teaching or running a training, if we're in an interview, again, on either side of the desk, when you're managing up, trying to share and influence your boss, or perhaps a client of some sort. You're trying to persuade anybody, a teammate, a coworker, somebody else. Ultimately, you want to, the guiding thought in coming up with those tweetable and repeatables is the idea that you want to complete the sentence. If you don't remember anything else that I say, remember this. So think about it this way. You want to convince your boss of something, you're pitching an idea. Okay. Well, they then have to take that idea to somebody else, whether it's the one of the chief executive or somebody else, or it could be to the board, could be to a client. If they have to relay what your key principles are, if you can't figure out how to take 20 minutes worth of information and distill it down into simple, easy to understand, remember, repeat, talking points, how do you expect them to do it? Think about that. If you can't figure out how to get it down to those short points, there's no way they will be able to, at which point, A, your message is less effective, and B, it's less likely to get relayed up because they won't know how, because they're certainly not about to just repeat everything that you said. So you have to give them those sound bites. And then they're able to just take it and sort of plug it in to whatever the rest of their presentation to their audience is going to be. So help them out, spoon feed them those core sound bites. With that, let's summarize. We want to make sure that you are the speaker that you'd want to listen to. That's really the core gist of how to be the best public speaker ever, confident and effective. So the 5 ways that you can do that is, number 1, to let your equipment do the work, right? Set up your camera, set up your lights, set up a microphone, make sure that everything looks and sounds good before you even engage with another person. Number 2, remember the 60 to 60 rule. Number 3, that 4-word secret to confident public speaking. It's not about you. Focus on giving the audience what they need, and they will love you for it. That's all there is. And next, secret number 4, answer the magic question. What's in it for me? Give them that content. They go together. And ultimately, be able to summarize your key points into those tweetable and repeatable sound bites, just like I did here, right? We just took a 30-minute presentation with lots of explanation and examples and illustrations and things. And here are my 5 points. I bet if you spoke to somebody else later today and they said, so how was that presentation you were going to watch? Did you get anything out of it? You can say, yeah, actually, let your equipment do the work. 60 to 60, 4-word secret. It's not about you. What's in it for me? And tweetable and repeatable. How easy is that? So if I can do it, you can do it. And with that, I'm going to invite each of you, please, to connect with me, because I would love to know how you've been able to incorporate some of these strategies, these secrets, into becoming a more effective public speaker. You can reach out to me through any of these different social media platforms. And if you do, by the way, please tell me, drop me a note and say, I heard you at the Northeast Philly Chamber's Women's Conference, your talk on public speaking or whatever it was. And I really would love to know that that's how we connected. That's all the more motivation for me as well to be able to connect. I also want to invite you to listen to my podcast, which is called Speaking to Influence, where I'm interviewing top leaders from all different industries, for-profit and nonprofit, where they are sharing their experiences, lessons learned, and advice with others about the role of communication as an essential leadership skill. And public speaking is always one of the topics that we discuss there. And there's a topic that I've been working with all different sorts of clients across the board for the last 6 months in particular, which is confidence, presence, and influence on video, which takes some of the things that we talked about today and goes into much greater depth. And from that, there is a free tip sheet that I would invite each of you to download. It's the 5 tips for running a video conference with confidence. So here's the link right there, Vocal Impact Productions, which is my website, .com/5video-tips. And you can get all that for free. And if you'd like to talk about having me work with you or with your team to have everybody able to do this really effectively and get results, please feel free to reach out to me via email here as well. Thank you once again so much for having me to the conference. It is great to work with all of you, and I wish you all great success and more influence.
I would like to take a moment to thank our generous sponsors. Through their support, we are able to bring you quality programming and a virtual networking experience. I'd like to thank our corporate sponsors, Philadelphia Federal Credit Union, Parks Casino, TD Bank, Marshall's Distribution Center, Philadelphia. I'd like to thank our executive sponsors, Chorus Services, Holy Family University, Inverse Paradox, Jefferson Health Northeast, Nazareth Hospital, Northeast Family YMCA, PICO, Philadelphia Gas Works, Philadelphia Industrial Development Corporation, Rivers Casino, St. Basil Academy, and Witham Smith & Brown. I'd also like to thank our media sponsor, Northeast Times, our production sponsor, Viral Ideas Marketing, and our session sponsors, Fast Signs of Northeast Philadelphia. Please take a moment to reach out to our sponsors and share your positive experience as a subscriber of the 2020 Women in Business Conference. Thank you very much for subscribing, and we hope you enjoy our programming.